The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome into the latest edition of Crossed Flags. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. We will get into the meat of everything, but we would be remiss if we didn't notice that today, the day that we record this podcast, it's 23 years since the events of 9/11/2001 in New York, Washington, D.C., and, of course, Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I remember just very vividly exactly what I was doing on that morning when everything kind of went down the way that it did, and all those men and women who lost their lives, and truth be told, all the people who are first responders, even to this day. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And all the men and women in the military as well. We appreciate your service. Very much so. So we remember them on this day. Now, for what we're here for. And it ain't politics. Couldn't care less about last night's debate. And if last night's debate swayed your opinion, more power to you. We got a couple of months to vote here. Let's get into why we're here. It's about racing. Playoffs have begun in the Cup Series. Atlanta. What do you think about the racing in Atlanta?
Interesting start.
Now, we were there, you and I both, we were there in the spring. Closest finish ever. And only 2/10 separate first from second at Atlanta on Sunday with Joey Logano advancing. And we had been to Atlanta before. And we can be real honest in saying this. For a while there, Atlanta was getting kind of boring.
Yeah, until they changed the configuration on it, which it's woken up in a way like I never thought it would wake up, but it's woken up big time. I was kind of puzzled a little bit of how, you see the Xfinity race Saturday, and then you see the Cup race Sunday. The lanes in the Xfinity race barely moved. But the Cup race, the lane was changing middle to bottom, back to middle, go top a little bit, back to the middle. They was changing lanes. I was like, this is weird. But they actually sustained some three-wide racing for a while. And multi-rows deep.
For a track that's relatively narrow.
It's tight.
Yeah, for Atlanta. Yeah, that was pretty good racing. But the thing about it is all of that went on even in the wake of what happened on Friday night. And what happened on last Friday, a week ago? You might ask. Well, NASCAR came to Atlanta and decided that negotiations apparently were done when it came to the charter agreement. And they handed a charter proposal to the teams at about, from what we understand, 5, 6 o'clock that afternoon, and told all the teams, you got up until midnight tonight to let us know, yay or nay.
A 105-page document. 105 pages on the charter agreement.
Now, I'm no speed reader, and here's the truth. I would have to be a lawyer and a speed reader to get through 105 pages of a charter agreement in the 7 hours?
6-7 hours, yeah.
So of the major teams that signed, of the major teams that are out there in the Cup Series, let's put it that way, 2 said, we ain't going to do it. One of them, 23XI, the big-time racing team that is co-owned by Denny Hamlin and NBA Hall of Famer and great Michael Jordan. Got a statement out that we're going to show you here.
Yeah.
And they basically said, yeah, this was them coming to us, not giving us time to sit down, look at it, figure out what we liked, what we didn't like. This was here, read it, sign it. Well, I don't know about you. I'm kind of the same opinion as 23XI. This is an ultimatum. No, we've been negotiating for a couple of years, and then you're just going to suddenly decide that negotiations need to stop and this is it or nothing else? Yeah, I got a problem with that, and I don't have a problem with this statement.
I don't either, because when you got the likes of Michael Jordan with Denny Hamlin. You got Michael Jordan and Curtis Polk, which Curtis Polk is Michael Jordan's right-hand man.
Yes.
It was basically the co-owner of the Hornets while Jordan owned the Hornets. Those are some pretty strong bullets to have to dodge, and I'm pretty confident in saying those are two businessmen from a business standpoint, two businessmen that you do not want to mess with.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, the other team, just to let you know, is Front Row Motorsports.
That one was a surprising one.
That's a little bit of a surprise, and we'll talk about this a little bit more come Saturday on the big show, because when you think about it, Bob Jenkins basically had the same reasoning that 2311 did. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any time to be able to read through it and go, yeah, we like this, no, we don't like this, how about upping this or downing this or whatever. Didn't have any time to do any negotiations. But Bob Jenkins, knowing that there wasn't a charter agreement in place, was the first one through the door to Stewart-Haas Racing going, oh, you're selling 3 charters? Let me buy one. And did it that fast. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was a little bit surprising. But to have the Joe Gibbs, the Rick Hendricks, Gene Haas, for all intents and purposes, not necessarily with Tony Stewart, Roger Penske, and all of those other owners apparently feel like this was good enough and go ahead and put pen to paper.
Well,
is
I saw
even more surprising.
I saw a statement Rick Hendricks said yesterday when he was asked about it. His words, and I quote, "I was just tired and wanted it over with," end quote.
So NASCAR wore them down effectively.
Basically wore them down, and they wasn't giving in, which is, and there's been comments made by different team owners. The names have not been revealed. That they're acting in like a communist regime kind of deal. Acting like you're going to do this or you're going to do that.
Well, and I mean, we all know the stories about Big Bill France and Bill France Jr. and how they tended to run NASCAR with an iron fist. I mean, if you know anything about the history of Talladega Superspeedway, you know about the very first race at Talladega. And Big Bill France said, you know what, we're going to run this even if you don't race there. And he figured out a way to get the race going on there, but he also understood for the fans that there was something that he wanted to deal with. And every once in a while, we still hear about somebody who has that ticket to that very, very first race, and they'll be more than willing to show it off. And Big Bill France said it back then, and it holds true to this day. If you have a ticket to the very first race at Talladega Superspeedway and you didn't use it that day, I mean, how much was it?
Can't remember.
Couldn't have been a whole lot. We're talking, 67, 68?
$5-10 maybe. That's shooting from the hip.
They'll give you a ticket to any race you want at Talladega if you show them that ticket. Think about that for a couple of minutes. Lowest price ticket now, 5, maybe 10 times what that original ticket cost. And they'll give it to you. Mm-hmm. No questions asked. Think about that. Pretty cool stuff. So he understands it's for the fans. There are times when I wonder whether the current NASCAR hierarchy, and sometimes the teams as well, I'll throw it out there on that one as well, understand it as well as Big Bill France and Bill France Jr. did, that they're putting on this race ideally for the fans. And stuff like this makes me wonder whether they understand that. Is this in the best interest? Was it in the best interest of NASCAR as a whole to shove this down the team's throats and say, sign it or else?
There's something that Denny Hamlin said last week that kind of struck with me. And it makes a lot of sense. It makes huge. Here we go. He made it last week during the playoff media days. His quote was, "I chose to invest back in the France family in NASCAR, and they are yet to show me an opportunity where I'm going to get that investment back."
Running a NASCAR team is not cheap.
But yet they want to, we've got to cut costs this, cut costs that, cut cost here, cut costs there. When you take, and I may be all a little bit off in my numbers here, but this is what I vaguely remember. When you can take a car, your Gen 6 car, that you could essentially put on the track for $150,000, that's rolling, ready to flip the switch, put it in gear, and go. And now it costs nearly $375,000 to $400,000 just to put one car on the track. That's garbage.
Yeah.
That is essentially garbage. And I'm going to spin it off of this right here. My dirt late model, but granted, the chassis, when I got it, it was a used chassis. It was a 6-year-old chassis. All right. Right now, brand new chassis versus chassis 15 years ago is $15,000 to $18,000 difference. No, not from inflation. We're not going to say that. It's from technology. But yet, people want to talk about how racing is such an expensive sport. Jeff Gordon said it best. If you want to be a millionaire in racing, start as a billionaire.
Sure. Yep.
It's that simple.
If you want to make a little money in racing, start off with a lot of money. That's basically one of the old adages in the racing world. If you'd like to make a small fortune in racing, start off with a big fortune. Because it ain't cheap, and you're going to spend a lot of money and throw a whole lot of good money after bad for a long time until you can become a winner. Ask Rick Hendrick about that. I mean, Rick Hendrick was ready to give it up. That story is well known now in their 40th anniversary year. But again, go back and look at the Rick Hendrick history. He was ready to give it up. They were throwing a whole lot of money out there until they were ready to give it up, and they said, well, we got everything ready to go. Let's go ahead and go to Martinsville and give it one more shot. And Jeff Bodine actually won the race, and that's what convinced him to continue going on. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of other teams that are out there that can say exactly the same thing. And there are a few teams that are out there that continue to spend the money to continue to travel to the races with sometimes brand new race cars and all of the personnel that are involved, from the driver to the pit crew and all the people that are behind the scenes that you never see at the shop. And they've never won a race. Or it's been years since they've won a race. But they continue to do it. Why? Because they love this sport. But somewhere down the line, somebody's going to get a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to this. And at this point in time, that team right there, if they pull out, that is a huge removal. Because you're talking about future Hall of Famer Denny Hamlin. I get it. He hasn't won a title. But he certainly has the wins to back it up. And he's been close many times. And it's Michael Jordan. And I don't care what you want to say about Michael Jordan. Why is he in NASCAR? None of that matters. Think about the name recognition that Michael Jordan brings to NASCAR. And if they pull out, that's huge. And that's a big, big loss.
I doubt they would run with no charters before they pull out, I think.
And I would agree with that.
I think.
If at some point in time, if you get so fed up with things, I mean, Michael Jordan decided to sell off his majority interest in the Charlotte Bobcats. Hornets, whatever they're called nowadays. Okay? Think about that. How does the NBA feel about the fact that Michael Jordan's no longer the primary owner of the Charlotte team?
And he took that money and invested it back there.
What's he thinking about that right now?
Because when you look at it, look at what is one emblem that has shown up more and more and more and more from a year-to-year basis.
Saw it on Sunday at Atlanta. That Jumpman
logo.
Sitting right on the hood of the 45 car.
Which is therefore essentially it's Nike sponsoring the car. Mm-hmm. So therefore, he's opening doors up for new sponsorship to come in. It's there for the taking. Adidas, Under Armour, New Balance, etc. I'm just naming off athletic companies. It's there for the taking. Who's going to do it first? Because that Jumpman logo has been in victory lane this year already, twice.
Yep.
Once
has been in there before, too.
One is a primary, one is Kurt Busch. Mm-hmm. One is a primary, one is an associate. So the logo's getting there. But why do you want to play monkey see, monkey do? Or he said, she said, or whatever you want to call it with this stuff?
Yeah. You got a brand new media rights deal that you just signed, which is not for the decade, which is the one that's going to end at the end of this year, But over the course of that decade, you're actually getting more money per year than what you were getting in the upcoming 7-year contract. You're getting more money per year than you were out of the 10-year deal.
40% increase, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you got to give it all to the teams. I'm just saying spread it out. The tracks need to get it. I understand that. Tracks need to get a cut of that money. That's where their budgeting comes from. It comes from NASCAR, who owns what we lovingly call International Speedway Corporation, and SMI. Those tracks need to get it because that is a major source of revenue for them. I get ticket sales, yes, but that's only a small part of it. It's like going to the movie theater. You sell a movie ticket, it's a very small profit for the movie theater that you happen to attend to go see Beetlejuice, or Reagan, or Twister, or Deadpool versus Wolverine. Where the movie theater makes their money is when you go buy concessions. That's how they make money. Movie ticket itself, very, very little profit in that. Very little profit in the ticket sale because a lot of that money is being invested right back in to the purse that's paid out at the end of the race. Where the tracks make their money is from the TV rights deal. Same thing with the teams. The teams get a portion of the TV rights deal, as they should, just like Major League Baseball teams, NFL teams, NBA teams, NHL teams. They all get a cut of the television rights deal, the media rights deal, if you will. And they should, because, again, the rising tide lifts all boats sort of thing. If you're doing a little bit better than what you were, help out those that are helping you. And to NASCAR, those team owners are helping you. We'll keep an eye on it.
They want to hold 4 charters back so the family can own a team of their own and go back in, a la Roger Penske with IndyCar. Roger Penske was already in IndyCar when he bought the series.
Yes.
So how can you can't kick out the man that's already had a team there. If that's the right way to say it.
Yeah.
But you can't use like, oh, well, Roger Penske's doing it, we can do it too. No, not necessarily.
No. It's a very different way of looking at it.
You've got a third more of cars that enter a race every single week versus what you have in IndyCar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to fight off 38-40 than fight off 24.
Yeah. And there was another way of looking at it. They were saying they were holding 4 back. I mean, 36 charters out there, 40 starting slots. And they were saying that, well, we're also holding 4 back in case another manufacturer wants to come in, and that way we can guarantee they get a starting spot. Well, that's a grand idea. But how many years now have we been talking about trying to attract that 4th car manufacturer, and it ain't happened yet?
Pretty sure it's been 12, 13 years.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard Nissan. We've heard people want Dodge back. We've heard Honda. We've heard God only knows what else. Well, you know what? Fish or cut bait. That's what it's all about. So from that, let's go back and talk a little bit about Hendrick Motorsports. We have been keeping an eye on this, and we figured that with the 2-year deal that was signed between Kyle Larson and Rick Hendrick and Arrow McLaren Racing and IndyCar, that it was going to be sooner rather than later that Kyle Larson was going to end up trying the double once again.
I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. Expect that car to be on the track next year. We weren't sure. We figured, okay, 2-year deal. Maybe you take a year off with, some of the negativity that came out with the rain delay that caused them to say, you know what, let's go ahead and just try and finish out the Indy 500 and see what we can do. And then they got to Charlotte, and by the time they got to Charlotte, it was, rained out.
Raining in Charlotte.
And all the backlash. Should we give Kyle Larson a waiver? Should we not give him a waiver? I mean, heck, they've given people waivers for a heck of a lot worse than going out and trying to give major publicity to both NASCAR and IndyCar by running the double. We went through all that stuff. You can go back and look at that and listen to it all you want. The fact that they decided to do it in 2025, not that big of a surprise to us. We figured that was exactly what was going to happen when we knew that there was a second year with an option on the part of really every side. Arrow McLaren could have said yes or no. There's no reason on planet Earth for Arrow McLaren to say no to this. For Rick Hendrick, I get it because that's a pretty severe investment in that driver right there. So if Rick Hendrick had any reservations, I can kind of understand it. But at the same time, if you think about how excited he was during this year's Indy 500 to have that car out on the track, to the point where he okayed Kyle Larson to finish out the Indy 500 instead of quitting and let's go before we start the Coca-Cola 600.
All of that was. I'll just say for what it's worth. Anybody wants to debate me, fine. That was manufactured drama. Because you cannot tell me, under any circumstances, anybody with a functioning brain cell that knows the ins and outs of motorsports, you cannot tell me that they did not have assurance and did not know that he would get a waiver if he completed the 500, and then came to Charlotte to get in the car for the 600.
Yeah.
Okay. He got to Charlotte, rain quit, track dry. Oh, we're done. Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, we're done. We're not going to finish it out. It's just going to run to like humidity.
Whatever. We've been in a situation like that where we were at Darlington on Labor Day in 2019, and we can tell you about humidity to the point where we were wiping off the windows. It was so humid outside versus the AC inside.
Sitting inside the Dan Lockamy PA booth at Darlington Raceway.
Yeah.
You know?
And you can't give us the late deal either, because what time did we get done with that race at Darlington?
That was a little after 2 a.m.
So, yeah, time's not a factor. Humidity, whatever. And then to turn around and sit there and have the fine folks who are in charge of granting or denying a waiver, that whole panel, and have some of them complain, we don't think that he was making NASCAR a priority.
Then why did he get on a plane and go from Indianapolis to Concord to get off the plane, get on a helicopter, go from Concord Regional over to Charlotte, which is about a 2-minute jump for a helicopter?
True.
Why would he even do that if he didn't have it as a priority?
And was running from the helicopter pad to get to his pit stall. Not walking, not strolling, not taking a golf cart, running.
Well, they got outside the track, and he got on the golf cart, and that golf cart was moving in a hurry.
But, I mean, when he got to that point where the golf cart couldn't take him any further, he was running.
To the pit box,
Yeah, he wasn't walking, he wasn't strolling, he wasn't doing a sachet and signing autographs on the way. He was booking it. This meant something to him. And it'll mean something again next year. We just hope that the weather cooperates.
And their contingency plan, if weather does interfere, Tony Kanaan's going to get in the car regardless of where he's running, and he's going to get pulled and go to the 600. And I loved how he deferred, like, Steve, is that okay with you? Steve Phelps. He was in attendance for the press conference. Steve, is that okay with you? I loved it.
Yeah. That was a nice, non-subtle dig, and it was deserved. So, looking forward to seeing that next year. And considering the fact that we know what Arrow McLaren can do, we know what Kyle Larson did in that car just a couple of months ago, where he was running at or near the front for a long portion of the afternoon. He's got the chance. He's got the best chance, I say, of doing what Tony Stewart did one time, and that's completing all 1,100 miles of both races. Could he win one? He absolutely could.
For next year, there's only one thing that makes this better for me, even better, with this essentially this new partnership with Arrow McLaren and Hendrick. Mexico City, Xfinity race, 17 car, Pato Award.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that'd be a pretty fair level swap out right there in a good partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. Need to do that. It'd be great. Look and put the find a place to put the Arrow logo on there. You can put the Arrow logo on that 17 car. It'll look good on there.
Yep.
We're just helping you out. It's what we do. And then there are certain people that just seem to be able to take something and make it better. I'll give you for an example. Go back to the 1980s. New York Giants hired this guy who had only been a linebackers coach previously. His name, Bill Parcells. What did Bill Parcells do? He built up the New York Giants. They were a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Then he decides, okay, I'm going to step aside from this. I'm going to take a break. But he's lured back, and he becomes the head coach of the New England Patriots for a couple of years. What is he able to do there? He turns that team into a Super Bowl contender. Got to Super Bowl 31, they lost. He decides, okay, I'm done after a bit of a spat with the owner, flips himself over to the New York Jets, two-time AFC title game contender. Went from there to the Dallas Cowboys. Think about that. I mean, success after success after success, right? Adrian Newey. Not necessarily a name that most people in the United States of America know. But Adrian Newey has been in and around Formula One for 4 decades plus, 40 plus years. He's worked for the likes of Williams. Think about this, okay? He's worked for the likes of McLaren. He's worked for Red Bull. And what do all those teams have in common while he was working there?
That'd be
as
titles.
Their chief car designer?
Be titles.
They all won titles. He's now leaving Red Bull. And he's going to Aston Martin. That man right there has designed race cars that have won 12 Drivers' Championships and 13 Constructors' Cup titles. Let me repeat those two numbers real quick. He's designed cars in 40 years that have won 12 Drivers' Championships and 13 Constructors' Cups. And he's going to Aston Martin, which is owned by a Canadian billionaire who has already shown he's more than willing to put his money where his mouth is and build that race team up. He has built them a brand new headquarters in England. He went and he signed F1 champion Fernando Alonso. And he's got his son. Some nepotism there, but his son was signed to that team before Lawrence bought the team. I'll state that. But there's a reason why Lance still has the ride. Thanks, Dad. But again, Lawrence Stroll has shown he is willing to go and put the investment into the team, and now he wants the team to show it up. And when Adrian Newey said, hey, I'm going to become a free agent, I'm going to leave Red Bull, I don't blame Lawrence. And he got himself into a bidding war with no less than Ferrari and won.
Yeah, I wonder how much that check was that old Lawrence stroked out for him.
I can tell you that number. The average annual salary for Adrian Newey, 30 million euros a year, which equates to $39 million US per year.
3-year deal, that's $107 million.
Yeah. And by the way, whatever Aston Martin you want off of the production car line, which Lawrence Stroll also owns, I'm sure he can pick. Not a bad deal.
No.
Congratulations, Adrian Newey. Now we find out whether or not he can do what he's done at Williams, at McLaren, and at Red Bull. I'm not discounting him. Okay. I'll be real blunt with you when I say that.
Race 1 of 2025 will tell you, FP1 will tell you right off of the bat what's it going to do.
I'll actually caution you on that because his official last day at Red Bull, according to the contract, he's not working there. He's not even darkening the doorstep of Red Bull. But according to his contract, it'll run through the end of this season, November. And he has to sit out, which means he cannot help Aston Martin that anybody knows of until March 1st of next year. By the end of the August break next year, that's when I expect this team to start taking off, because then he'll have been able to put pen to paper hard. And once you can do that, then you can go, okay, how do we put this into practice? And that means going through the season and doing upgrades. Expect that team after the August break. That's going to be the real performance factor.
I can guarantee you he's already talking.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure of it.
He's talking, which is therefore verbally saying, like, hey, this needs to go here, this needs to go there. Because I'm pretty sure his communications device is not bugged by Red Bull or Christian Horner.
No. Or
So-
F1 for that matter.
Pretty sure he's already helping.
I'm sure
In
he
a way.
is. Yeah, he's giving little tips, little hints.
Little tips, tips and hints there.
Here's the thing. What we're looking at right now, Red Bull's leading the Constructors' Cup. They got McLaren hot on their heels, and Ferrari's not too far back. And, of course, we're not that far away from where Mercedes was dominant in winning 7 straight Constructors' Cup titles.
Mm-hmm.
Can this team, which is currently sitting in 5th, but is 150 points or something like that behind Ferrari, maybe 200, closer to 200? They've only scored Aston Martin 50 to 7. I don't have the number in front of me. Something like 50 to 70 championship points for the team itself. And that's good enough to put them in 5th. But when you look at Mercedes, they're over 200. So there's a big jump to go from 5th to 4th. And that's where this guy comes in. And that's where this guy has to earn his 30 million euros a year. But based upon his track record, and especially considering he's the guy that has been designing the cars that Max Verstappen has been dominating Formula One with the last, 4 seasons, really. It's hard to bet against him. It's real hard to bet against him.
Red Bull 446, McLaren 438, Ferrari 407, Mercedes 292.
There you go.
Aston Martin, Aramco Mercedes 74.
There you go. 220-point difference. Aramco, you can see right there, is their major sponsor. Where does the Mercedes come in? The Mercedes part comes in because they build the engines and Aston Martin buys them and uses them. That will continue into next year. In 2026, that engine goes from Mercedes to Honda. And who's Honda supplying engines to right now for all intents and purposes?
That would be Red Bull.
It's going to be a fun team to watch. Congratulations to you, Adrian Newey. Let's see where you can do it again. Do you still have that magic?
I could almost bet Honda had a play in pulling him over there too.
Oh, gosh, yes. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Coming up this Sunday is another day entirely. Coming up this Saturday on the big show, 2 hours back at our regular time, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. Guess who's in the studio all by himself? You're coaching again.
Game 2.
Yes. Well, we could talk about that, but we're not gonna. we're gonna put that behind us, and we're gonna move on.
Yeah, game's over, but I'm still chapped when I have one running back that runs for 271 yards and we lose.
How does that work?
Well, when you have 3 touchdowns called back due to penalties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would do it.
And your closest friend is White Hat in the game too. Yeah, that was fun. But
Yeah.
the penalties were legit. I had to tell him, throw it. I told him to throw one to make him understand, but I'm like, what did I just do?
Yeah. Hey, that just means you're an honest coach. Yeah. So he'll be there. You will join us by phone.
First 2 segments.
There you go. And then it'll be me for the rest of the way. Hope you join me on Saturday. And, of course, don't forget, next Wednesday we'll be right back here with another edition of Crossed Flags. We'll talk to you then.